All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Prodigal Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Clay. I'm joined here by my father, Jason, and my brother, Cole. How are you,
Woo!
how was your guys' week?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah, bit of a mixed bag, but so far so good.
Yeah.
I will say the highlights are I've been able to lead worship. Uh,
A lot.
tomorrow will be my fourth time for the week. So, and tomorrow's Wednesday. So, for anyone who's listening, yeah,
A
and
lot.
that'll keep going until Thursday. So it'll be a grand total of six. No, five.
Not what like why? Not that that's
Uh,
like a bad thing. I'm just saying like why?
sure. There's a band I'm in. We're leading worship at a school every morning.
High
Like
school
a
or
high yeah.
college?
High school.
Oh,
That's
cool.
a big high school. I saw a
Uh,
picture. That was a rather
well,
large
it's
auditorium.
a private school with a big church.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, there's
Is it
probably
is it is it North
like
Point?
two, 300. No,
No.
it's
I know
called
some
F. It's called
Is it elevation?
First Assembly Christian School.
oh, I know some kids from North Point. That's the only reason.
Oh, I thought we were just
Yes,
naming
but
really big churches. Okay.
No,
no, I know there's a few kids I know from North Point. So talk to them a little bit. Well, it's awesome. Dad, how was your week?
It's good. I didn't burn down anything other than what I was trying to burn down yesterday, so that's a good thing.
which was
A bunch of brush that I've been piling up for the last 4 or 5 months. So the winds were low, the tide was high. I don't know. There is no
Yeah,
tide here.
I also heard some douchebag like had a bunch of broken glass in your backyard from,
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
yeah,
I've been picking up glass,
that's
keeping
crazy.
trying to keep from having flat tires, and it's just been a nightmare.
Uh,
Hopefully it all melted
oh,
because that fire got hot.
I meant to grab the screw that I took out of my tire this week. I mean, that boy was,
That was more like a bolt.
yeah, well, I think it was a bolt. Like it was
Clay. Are
ginormous.
you
But
the person in question that keeps putting glass on his driveway?
no,
Not in the driveway.
it was his backyard.
Oh,
Probably about 20 or 30 yards behind the little white barn slash garage back there is a
Yep.
big pile of broken glass
hmm
uh,
So
with
I will
bullets through
say,
it.
in my defense, like you would have too. Like you would have been one of the reasons if you would have hit anything. So since you didn't hit anything, there was no broken glass.
I'm telling you, my ear is still ringing a little bit.
ah.
It's not as bad as it was last week, but it's still ringing a little bit. Like
Well,
that's as soon as that went off, I'm like, okay, I'll try one more, and then I fired one more time, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like I can hear nothing right now. This is not good. Just
well,
not good.
like I said last week, I don't feel bad for you because when you're offered fancy electric earmuffs, you put them on, especially when you're shooting loud guns. So
Clay,
loud
how
guns.
was your week?
Good, except for I had to take the bolt out of my tire. Um, so I discovered how low Dad's opinion of me really is. Um, so that was interesting.
I wouldn't say how low my opinion of you is. I would say how realistic your explanation was,
Yeah, it was pretty. It
to
was
the point
off.
where I'm like, I would have tried that.
It's just so crazy. It might actually work. So basically, I told him that I was gonna take my tire to get it fixed, and I was like, you know what, it's closed anyway. Screw this. I'm a man. I can figure this out myself.
Screw this.
Yeah, screw
No
this.
pun
Ah,
intended.
yeah, there we go. And so I went and got a kit or whatever. So I,
So
changed
he
it.
bolted out of the church.
It's true. I took a
Eh.
I took a picture, like a before picture and then an after picture with a thumbs up. And he was like, "Did you change your tire?" I was like, "Yeah, I changed it myself." Like he's like, "Did you get a tire kit?" I was like, "Well, kinda. Like I just, put some like super glue on a paper towel and shoved it in there with the Phillips head screwdriver." And like I thought he was gonna like laugh and be like, "Oh yeah, funny." And he was like, "Dude, that's not gonna hold. Like just buy like eat the $15, go to AutoZone, grab
I'm
a kit,
telling
like
you,
do it." I'm like, I literally just called him. I was like, how low of opinion of me do you have that you thought I actually did something that stupid?
I'm telling you, I would have tried that. That's
Well,
why I'm like, nope. This is one of those times where, hey, lesson learned from dad. Don't do that.
yeah, well, Ronan did not like the air shooting out of the tire.
Oh,
Liv could hear it from the inside the apartment. I mean, it was a big bolt that was in the tire, so
is it
dropped
holding so far?
dropped about 12 psi in about 10 less than 10 seconds. Yeah,
Good.
it's good. Yeah, did
Got to watch a
so far.
pretty big football game Sunday night. Have a lot of good
Yep,
food. Coley,
Dude,
we
that
missed you.
was crazy.
go
This won't be
birds.
out for like 4 weeks, so it'll be kind of a late reaction, but that was nuts.
It was a great game.
They just
Love.
never came, like they could never respond to Philly's D line. Like there was just no response. They could
Nope,
not get a playoff.
nope. Big fan of a
The
good offensive game.
sitting down, and I think it was first quarter, it might have been second quarter. You know, Reese and I, my roommate, we got all our snacks. You know, we were sitting down to watch this game. Sack, next play. Sack, next play. Pick six. I was like, it's over. There's no
That's
like, it's over.
that's pretty
There's
much
no.
yeah.
I
Cooper DeJean to the house.
was like, that was insane.
Some exciting whites. We love it.
I did see that I saw something really interesting that Mahomes' first touchdown came when they were down 24-0. His second touchdown came when they were down like 40 to 10 or something like that. And then his third touchdown came only after Philly's head coach had been doused with Gatorade already. So like it's like
Yeah.
yeah, it just
Yeah, Devonta and AJ threw the Gatorade on him before the 2 minute warning.
yeah, they did.
Like
There
that,
was
I
still
mean,
3 minutes left in the game.
I mean, then no doubt they were gonna win, but with Patrick Mahomes, you never know. And so for them to do it that early, I mean, it was what it was, but I was just like, hold on, fellas. Like you probably might have jumped the gun a little
They were pretty
too
slick
much
about
over
it
that.
too. Like the camera was on him and they were ready. And it's
The
like he turned. They were like,
little,
well, you know,
little spin move,
look
yeah.
away and then turn around and get him. It was a lot of fun.
What was your favorite commercial?
Mm.
I'll tell you
Oh,
what,
which one was it?
I
We were both
abs
laughing at one of them. What was it? Oh,
you laughed at that stupid Mountain Dew commercial with the guy's face on the seal.
okay, yeah.
Uh,
Because it
that
was Seal.
I've been seeing that all week, and it's
Oh,
gross.
I didn't get the ref. I just thought I told Liv that it looked like Voldemort on the back of Professor Quirrell's head in Harry Potter. That's what I thought it looked like.
It's like
I didn't re
it was
I didn't get
Seal
the
as a
uh
seal singing "Kiss from a Rose." That was
oh.
funny.
So yeah, so in real time I'm learning that there's an artist out there named Seal. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Come on.
Okay, here
It's, how would
my
you?
top three.
I'm
My top three
too old.
in no particular order. Harrison Ford's Jeep commercial.
One of one.
That was solid.
It never will be beat. It's the greatest commercial I've ever seen.
It was wholesome. It was great, and then at the end he snuck in the
Even though my last name's that was
solid, and it
fantastic.
was
It's the
wholesome.
greatest. It was the best commercial I've ever seen,
Yeah.
It was
hands
just a
down.
good commercial. That the I think I never can remember Tim Robinson. That's his name, right?
Oh,
The
the alien
Tostitos commercial.
with the alien and the door
Yeah,
closes on him. That one was
that
funny.
one, and then um the Reese's cup lava. Reese and my roommate and I laughed out loud when the guy was like, "Lava, get in my mouth."
I don't remember that one.
I'll
It was a
tell
No,
you.
good one.
If
the pizza rolls one was shocking. I was watching. I was like oh,
You
Tim
know, it's a
Robinson's funny.
meme now. Like Tostitos are like leaning into this meme of like RIP, you'll be missed. And
That's
like the
funny.
comments are like I think his name is like Chusmo or something.
R.I.P. my boy Chusmo.
Wait, let me look let me look it up.
Throw up R.I.P. Chusmo in the chat. I will say though, one thing that I mean, even from the beginning of the game, and then to kind of the way that, with President Trump being at the game, and the way that, the national anthem was great.
Yeah.
The Harrison Ford commercial, it was really cool to see a lot of this pro-America, really more, just not random commercials where you're like, okay, why are we trying to force something? Why are we trying to make it about, race? It was just about like being together, and, you know, I saw a lot of stuff on Twitter that said, or X, whatever you want to call it. Um, a lot of stuff that's like America's healing, and I don't know if that's the case, but it was cool to see. It was more
Chasmo.
Chasmo, yeah. It felt more. It felt cool, and I don't remember
Yeah.
I don't remember a football game, specifically the Super Bowl, feeling that pro America, and that just like, oh man, this is we're back, kind of like.
Yeah.
It was really really cool. The Brad Pitt thing was awesome. The Harrison Ford thing was awesome. Just funny commercials. I think even Kendrick Lamar's halftime show, I appreciated that it wasn't just like naked women on the screen, and it was like, a lot of people don't like Kendrick's music. I do, and so I was entertained by it.
All the Gen Xers in the crowd were just
Yeah, just like what is going on?
anybody who understood was like, "Ah."
I think it was kind of lame that he made the whole thing about Drake, but it's kind of why he's popular again right now, and so I thought that was cool. But just like even the subliminal messaging, it wasn't like screw America, but it was like hey, like we're America's back, but we got some stuff to work on still. And it was like, it was cool that he kind of, it was just very minimal with his show. Um and then obviously I'm a football guy, and so the game was awesome. Go Birds. The best Kelsey brother, even though he didn't play,
Philly doesn't
won
exist
out.
anymore,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Philly burned to the ground.
Yeah, that was rough.
So that might be the end of the Eagles.
Well, now fly Eagles fly, baby, and you can't keep them down. But yes, I knew Philly was gonna go nuts.
I
But
saw some aftermath, like some pictures. I think they were posted today or something. I had a few minutes and I was scrolling, and it was it was almost like I can't tell if they won or they lost
I
because
saw,
Yeah.
like
I
it was
saw,
destroyed.
I saw one thing where it was like, it was a video of, I don't think anybody had any guns, but they might have. I don't know. But people were running up and down the street screaming, fire explosions, fireworks, people crying, all this stuff. It just looks like chaos. And it was like, this is going to be Philadelphia tonight, whether they win or lose. Like, it's going to be the exact same.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much like what it was. So,
Yep.
but,
I learned that no matter if you win or lose, there's an after party.
oh, yeah.
So there was like it was like a clip of the Chiefs after party and it was tough.
It's just Tech Nine by himself singing Red Kingdom to nobody. No, it was good. Great weekend. And then, back to reality at 5:45 in the morning on Monday. But so yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
All right, so
so
we're headed
our
off tonight on a prodigal story. Is that right? Hearing somebody
man in
else's.
question, Cladams.
There it
What up?
is.
Cladams himself. All right. So just give a little short introduction. Uh and we'll go from there of what who you are and what you're currently doing, just so people can get some context.
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, I'm not on social media really anymore except for my job. But first thing I put everywhere is I'm a sinner saved by grace. And I'm a husband, a dog father, not a godfather, but a dog
Ah,
father.
nice.
I've been waiting to say that for like 4 weeks, and so it didn't hit in all the way I thought it
Dog
would,
father.
but
He's the dog
Boo.
father. All right.
so yeah, so
You gonna make us an offer we can't refuse?
I just might. And so husband to Olivia, dog dad to Ronan. Let's see. I love to read. Um, love to. I love football. It's kind of been my, and it'll be probably some of what I'm going to talk about, but it's been a big part of my life. Part of what I'm currently doing. I'm coaching football at a Division three school here in Indiana. Um, and it's been a fun experience, learning experience for sure. And it's, I got a passion for the vulnerable. I got a passion for seeing people grow, for helping people. And so, I have an undergrad from Taylor University in orphans and vulnerable children, where I played O-line there for 4 years. And then I currently serve as a defensive line coach, getting my master's of business administration at Anderson University, as well as coaching there. So kind of taking two separate parts and kind of, molding them together. But, I'm just about helping people. I'm about, you know, I've never been afraid to say the hard thing. I've never been afraid to, you know, get after somebody. And, you know, I've been one of the more aggressive people in my undergrad spheres and, in the realm of academia. But, I've kind of worn that with a badge of honor. And I think my professors know that. And, I've got a great group of friends. Some I call them my foxhole, my 3 a.m. guys who, no matter where they're at or where we're at, what's going on, if I call them at 3 a.m., they're gonna be there for me. And so, yeah, so got married in April and coming up on a year, which is crazy. Um, and yeah, that's me.
Cool. What is something that describes you or something that you enjoy doing that has nothing to do with your occupation, which is gonna be hard for you, but you also can't say reading because you already said reading.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say reading, but I think that does really go into my occupation a little bit.
Well, I
I
mean,
love.
it's kind of everybody. You got to read to some extent.
Yeah, but you
Well,
don't
you
have to love
you
it.
would you would be surprised, and yes, you don't have to love it. Um, yeah, so I'm a big what's the word? I'm a big outdoors guy. Um,
Big
love my
outdoors guy.
big outdoors guy. Love to work out. It's kind of been something that's really grown to be a passion of mine over the past probably 5 years. As you can see, I've got my some of my lineup behind me. I got more in the safe. Um, like I said, about protecting people, so that's kind of what all this is for. But I love hunting, even though it's more just sitting and watching instead of doing any actual killing. But I feel really close with God when I'm outside in His creation, and I'd love to go, like a Montana elk hunt one day is like my dream goal. That
I
was
will
just
say it's still my life goal right now to beat you to the first deer kill.
I don't put my identity in how many animals I kill, so
It's almost happened multiple times. It's
well,
fallen through.
well, I'm more of a duck hunter anyway, so that's all right. But yeah, so and what sparked my interest in that? My great grandfather kind of, I would say, sparked my interest in it, but when I look back on it, he just like hated that I did it more than anything. But he knew that I enjoyed it, and so he'd always ask me questions about it, and he piqued my interest into firearms a little bit. But it's just something like I can really never point to one specific thing. I've had some really great people in my life, take me out, take me hunting, Eastern Ohio, here in Indiana. Um, but it's just really, I don't know, I really can't describe why, other than, that's just I have a passion for blowing stuff up, shooting guns, and being in creation. Um, that's
Fair enough.
it's content I consume. So I've always watched, tons. I'm a YouTube kid, and so I've always watched a bunch of YouTube videos about it, and it's just always been something I've been interested in. So
Fair enough. Um, cool. Yeah, I mean, you kind of already answered the next question, so I guess let's get into what you have described on this little roadmap. The meat and potatoes.
the meat and potatoes,
Um,
Potatoes.
potatoes, not
boil them,
potatoes.
mash them, stick them in a
Stick 'em
stew.
in a stew. Um, what? So, for anyone who this might be their first time listening, this is the Prodigal Podcast where we talk about what we would describe as prodigal stories and We believe that everyone has a prodigal story, every believer, and every non-believer. You could still be in it. And you could be a believer and still be in it. That's kind of the thing with this. It's just and there could be a bunch of micro prodigal stories in your life. The idea is we all have a testimony of straying away from God and coming back to Him, and so we just decided that not only are we going to take this opportunity to talk with each other each week because we I live far away from them, so but also that we're going to take this opportunity to uh, be able to share those testimonies, and if anyone listens, that it blesses them and maybe helps guide them or give them insight or make them feel like they're not alone in these stories, but also just to edify the church and hear what God has done in our lives and hopefully people's lives that we get to talk to moving forward. But that being said, Clay, what would you describe as um, the time in your life, and don't go into much detail because I'll we can we'll walk through it, but um is there a time stamp in your life where you feel it began?
For sure. Um, I would say that prodigal era in my life started about September of my sophomore year of high school.
Wow, that's
Um,
really specific.
oh yeah.
Dude,
And
I don't know how people do that. Old people are all about all like old people are like, yeah, when I was like
Hmm.
in
Welcome to it. Yeah. Keep going, old
1970,
people. Hmm.
I'm just like, I don't understand how people get recalled dates so well. So good job on a good memory.
I don't understand how I was just called old for knowing. Never mind. The filter caught that. I'll just let
You're
that
an
one
old
go.
soul.
Um, let's say no, I'm not gonna say.
All right,
So
so
yes,
September.
September, my sophomore year of high school, till about, I would really say April, late March to early April of my freshman year of college. Um,
Wow.
would be would be the time stamp. It's probably a little fuzzy, but I would say it's probably around there.
Wow. And would you say that that's kind of the whole arc, or that's that's like this is where it started and this is where it came to a land, or are you saying that that whole chunk of time was this time in your life where you felt you were not fully pursuing the Lord how you should?
Could you ask that question? What do you, so
Yeah,
like,
I can rephrase. Are you
yeah.
saying so like this sophomore year is when it began and it started to
Oh,
and then
yeah.
by your freshman year it's down, or are you saying this whole time is at this level of being away
Oh,
from
yeah.
God?
No, no, no. It definitely, I mean, I think, late middle school, you're stereotypical. I think, my struggle was no different than any other middle school boys in terms of, oh, now I'm noticing girls and now I'm looking at this when I probably shouldn't be, stuff like that. I think that's probably where it started, just as, most, I mean, not even most, every single male, um, probably dealt with in some similar way. But I would say it really, really started ramping up my sophomore year of high school. And then it was just a continual, I wouldn't say it was like a continual build because it was obviously here.
Sure.
But, and then I wouldn't say it definitely, I mean, it came down into a more of a steady, time my freshman year of college where I was actively pursuing my relationship with Christ. Um, and I acknowledged how he was trying to pursue me. And I would say since that point, I have lived in light of that. And I was not doing that, you know,
Cool.
throughout that duration.
Well, I mean, um, I guess before we kind of get into the story, I think it's interesting to hear on the back end um, what you've learned in that time, and I feel like kind of when we hear that, when we know that, we can uh, maybe listen in a little better. So what would you say in that time where you felt that way? Did you learn? and that you're carrying in your marriage, you're carrying in your relationship with God, and you're carrying in your continual pursuit as a Christian man.
Yeah, number one thing that I learned is how utterly depraved I am aside from the grace of God. Um, First and foremost, but then in terms of actual practical life things, is that my identity is not in what I do or how other people see me. My identity is in who Christ says I am and whose I am. And that is something that I've struggled with for a very, very long time. It was kind of the catalyst for that, that prodigal period in my life, was just not realizing that. And so coming out on the other side, and yeah, it's obviously something that, still struggling with, in terms of, day to day, sometimes I'll listen to the lie of the devil or something like that. But far and away, that's a lesson that I've pulled from that time is that like my identity is not what I think about myself at any given time, how well I performed on the field, how well I performed in the classroom, how well I performed coaching, whatever it is. Um, that that was settled on the cross 2,000 years ago. And I can live in light of that. And then kind of the second thing, is that like it's okay to be who God created me to be instead of always trying to be somebody else. Um, for a long time, I thought I was kind of corny and kind of, um, I mean, obviously, I've struggled with anger for a really, really long time. That's always been something a battle that I've had to face. And so trying to swing so far the other way where I'm, basically a snowflake, um, and trying to tiptoe around everything, and then it would, come out at some certain points in time, and it just realizing that like God created me to be an aggressive dude, and there's nothing wrong with that. God created me as someone who has wears his heart on his sleeve 90% of the time. I got to keep it in check. And by the grace of God, he helps me do that. But there's nothing wrong with the way that God created me, and I think that's a realization that I've come to in this, coming out of that time in my life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You said some really interesting stuff that I would love to just sit on and unpack. But let's go
Or sit
back
on
for a
me.
second. Let's go back for a second. And you said it started sophomore year. Kind of the floor is yours here. What walk us through this prodigal journey and um you know walking away and finding your way back home to the Lord.
Yeah. So I grew up, obviously PK, pastor's kid, pretty much as long as I can remember. Um, had some tragedy happen, obviously, to our family that I kind of just, early on that I kind of bottled up, never really acknowledged, just kind of shoved down. It is what it is. Um, and but I was like, to be candid and honest, I was so sick and tired of being a pastor's kid. Because I felt like there was an expectation on me that I was placing on myself. Like there wasn't like a never from dad or my or mom or anybody was it like you have to be this way when we're here or anything like that. And so it was just a lie from the devil that I was listening to, but a lie that I believed, that I had to be a certain way and act a certain way or this would happen, all this stuff. So I hated that. I hated that I felt that, the person that's supposed to listen to my problems was in charge of listening to everybody else's problems. And so I really just kind of kept to myself. And that's when I started, dealing with a lot of the identity stuff, a lot of the trying to figure out who I was, trying to be somebody that I'm not. And it really all culminated. This entire time I'm playing football, I've played the same position for 17 years. Was a quarterback 18 years ago. Threw dimes, not gonna lie, but then they put the stripe on my helmet and I couldn't carry the ball anymore. So I played offensive line my entire life. And I played a little bit my freshman year, just enough to get a varsity
I
letter,
Can I
but
ask a question? Do
no.
you well, okay. Do you think that if they would have allowed you to be a skill guy,
I was a skilled
that
guy. Oh, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna stop you right there.
Oh, here we go.
Offensive line is a skill position.
oh, sorry.
Um, it will always be a skill position. Anybody that says it's not doesn't know ball. Um,
I don't, so I'm
so
sorry.
no, not just you. I'm just saying for all the naysayers, the haters out there.
Okay.
Gotta let them know.
Well, you know what I'm referring to. People who handle the football.
Oh, I snap the ball all the time.
Okay. Do you think if that would have been an opportunity for you that you, you know, you would not have continued down the line of O lineman? Perhaps your time would be different, or do you think you would have always inevitably ended up on the line?
I've always was a play. I always would have played O line because I was just a big kid. Like they wouldn't. I mean, that option wouldn't have happened. And I was told by two guys that meant and mean the world to me, who both played O line at my high school, were much older than I was. They said there's five. They said there's only one quarterback, but there's five O linemen. So if you want to play, you get better figure out how to block. And so I kind of was like, oh, well, mathematically that makes sense. So I'll just probably stick to this. Um, and so yeah, so I played just enough to get a varsity letter my freshman year, but my sophomore year, it was really, me is my first year to be able to start. But it was me and there's 22 starters. There's about 21 of those guys were seniors. I probably might be wrong, but I know for a fact I was one of two sophomores starting, I believe.
Hmm.
Um,
That's right.
Me and a receiver. Um, and then one of my buddies was our quarterback for the first few games, and then some one our quarterback got hurt, so he came in, But but I was the young guy in the group, and especially in the O line room, and that was awesome experience to have. We won some games, and so that was a lot of fun. Um,
Can't relate.
but but it was a time when I was like I was the most impressionable kid I've ever seen. I've ever met because I on top of me fed up with being a pastor's kid, being, I'm willing to do anything. And now I've got buddies who are 2 years older than me, who are not making the best decisions day in and day out. I kind of flocked to them. And I did a lot of stuff that I'm not proud of. Um, and that was something that kind of continued throughout that year, a little bit into my junior year, but not really. Um, and then, my junior and senior year were fine. Didn't struggle a lot with the um, making the wrong decisions with going out with friends and all this stuff. It's not, but it was a misplaced identity, and I just didn't know who I was, and quite frankly, hated who I was. And so I was a jerk. I put my identity in relationships, put my identity in who's this kind of
At
front
this
that I
point, did you were you still like very against pastor's kid, or do you think you kind of came to terms with it more at that point?
I mean, it kind of was what it was. I wasn't as angsty about it, but I'm pretty fed up. We had moved as a family, and that I had a lot of bitterness towards that, and it was just I was just in a rough place, and so for a long time I was very back and forth, wishy-washy. I might do this, I might do that. I'm gonna commit to Christ here. Oh, never mind. I got stuff to do, all this stuff, and so it was just very, very passive. And it was characterized by just I had no idea who I was, and whatever I saw in the mirror, I hated. Struggle with my weight, all through high school, and so that was a big part of that hatred of literally what I saw in the mirror I didn't like, but also just what I knew was on the inside I didn't like either, and I was just passive about it, didn't do anything about it, just kind of went with the flow, and ended up hurting probably a few people that um, could have been avoided, but just by me hating what I saw and who I was, and it kind of took it out on everybody else and made it everybody else's problem. Um, but I knew that about myself. And obviously, whatever you think about yourself is you just magnify in your brain, right? Teachers thought I was a nice kid. But so, I mean, I was a nice kid. I did what I was supposed to do. And so I kind of felt like a fraud because I got teachers saying one thing, I'm getting whatever, a citizenship award here, nominated for something here, but I know that I'm just like dirty scumbag douche on the inside. And so that was something that I really, really struggled with. Just feeling like a fraud and trying to put on a front. Um, yeah, and that was kind of characteristic of high school in the beginning of
I
it.
can't help but chuckle at your use of words.
Dirty scumbag.
No, the the other.
What'd I say? Did I cuss?
No,
Oh,
no. It's just perhaps a little a little rude wording, but
There is
oh,
some
sorry.
douchebaggery happening.
oh,
Yeah.
pfft. Yeah. Well, it's true. And that's something that,
I can I ask a question?
yeah.
And Dad, feel free to ask questions at at any point. Um, you mentioned moving around, that added a bitterness or to this situation you were already in. Kind of explain, if you are comfortable, explain kind of the situation and what was how did the what
I'm just waiting. Keep going. This is going to get interesting real quick.
I was just gonna say, and how did that affect you?
Um, so right in the middle as I was struggling with all this, like I felt like I finally found a group of friends, granted that I was doing the wrong stuff with. Um, we ended up moving about 35 minutes away from where I went to high school, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that far, but as a high school kid, you feel like that's, a
It's
lifetime
light
away.
years away. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and it was just, I mean, I lived in pretty much the same house since I was 4 years old, except for, save about 10 months in Ohio. Um, and I just felt like the dumbest thing in the world. It didn't make any sense to me. Um, and I felt like I was the only one that was directly adversely affected by it in terms of like commute and travel and all this stuff. Like I'm the one that was doing it every single day. Um, and so I was just like, this, what do we do? This is the dumbest thing we've ever done. Like, why this, it's not worth us moving over. Like, I just was like,
For context, we moved because I went to an acting program, so we moved closer to that.
yeah. And so, I mean, it was just like, and I was excited for you, and I was great that you, it's like, oh, super cool that you could have that opportunity. But I was like, this is stupid. Like, what are we doing? Why do we live in this 100-year-old house that has a weird third floor? Don't get me wrong, we had some elite gaming sessions on that third
That's
floor.
true,
I'm
dude.
not gonna lie.
That are still on YouTube.
They are. But it's just like that was just I mean, it was like one of the smallest things ever, but it just like it happened right at a time when I was probably at my lowest spiritually.
Mm.
And I mean, it's like a first world problem, right? We moved from one nice house to another nice house, but it was just like, what are we doing? And I was and so that just, that was just some bitterness that I harbored. And so something I had to work through, and in the grand scheme of things, it ended up working out, and we able to move back. Um, but
Dad, what do you have? What's on your mind?
I'm just listening right now. I do have a couple questions, but I want to keep going because I wanted to circle back around at the end. Um, I want him to finish kind of the arc of the story. So right now, basically, we moved, and you're in junior, senior year of high school, and the struggle's real.
yeah,
The identity struggle's real.
hmm yeah. Um, like I said, I mean, it was just didn't know who I was and hated what I saw, and so I thought if I tried to seek comfort in other places, maybe I would feel better. Obviously, that's like the lie of the world. I mean, that's the lie everyone keeps believing for centuries, right? Um, Ended up, graduated during, 2020. Obviously, the COVID stuff was going on. I really didn't care much about that. I just true like people thought that was the end of the world. I didn't care. Um, I got really, during that whole time, there's a lot of political turmoil, all that stuff. I got really into politics. Ended up, got an offer to play football. Few offers, whatever, but I ended up picking the right school
Oh
for me.
yeah, subtle
Um,
flex.
yeah, I mean, I just said a
I got
offer.
an offer. I mean, I got a few. I
Not
We kind
nothing.
of went
I
all
mean, nothing
over
crazy.
testing out schools. They were all saying, "Please come here."
No, nobody was. I promise you, nobody was saying that, and that's part of the reason why I also felt like a fraud because I was like, kind of felt like I just kind of snuck in the door, at literally the greatest. I mean, it's holy ground. One of my best friends says it. He says that place is holy ground. And I felt like a fraud just for being able to be there because I was like, I'm from some, no disrespect to, the program, but like a tiny high school, like wasn't, I mean, I was good for the high school, wasn't great. Not as strong as I should be. I'm 150 pounds overweight, can barely move. And so I just felt like that just added to that feeling of being a fraud, right?
What's so
Um,
crazy is you saying that reminds me of like how even in that season where you were visiting these colleges that wanted you, um, like I know I was constantly telling you like, dude, please play football because you were kind of on the fence of even
yeah, no, I
going
wasn't.
for it.
This is what I tell guys all the time. Like I wasn't even going to play football. I wanted to go into the military. I've always wanted to do that. Um, but real talk, I was almost 330 pounds at the time. So I'm like, I can't go to the Air Force because that plane's not getting off the ground, and I can't do a push-up. So if the Marines are out, right? Like it's just real. Like that's what I was struggling with every single day. Like because I didn't want to play football, but I felt like everyone's saying I should. And by the grace of God, he led me to Taylor. And it's the greatest thing that could have happened to me, outside of my salvation and my marriage. And so like the people that I met, um, the way that God pulled me out of kind of the stuff I was dealing with, real talk, cut some ties, um, with some people that I was spending some time with, and enabled me to go to 2 feet into that place, 2 feet into my relationship with Christ. Um, I can't say enough about it. Like, yeah, the football was awesome, but that place in general is, um, it's awesome. It was a great experience, and like I said, it was during COVID though, so it was a little bit different my freshman year. Um, didn't really know anybody. I saw this like weird chick on campus that wore like a bandana. She was like 5'10", red hair. I'm like, who's this girl? She looks like Arthur Morgan right now. She got this bandana over her face. Had no idea. Um, her best friend and one of my good friends at the time just like introduced us and asked us both to get lunch and then just like left and we just were sat there talking for an hour and a half and um just like crazy experiences that I've never had before just because I went to the same school, all the same people, like so it was cool to kind of have that experience um and yeah, so but like I said, and then football, there was two different staffs, coaching when I was there. The staff that recruited me, left after my freshman year, and then we had, um, a new coach come in. Um, and I tell people he's one of the best football coaches in the world, but that dude's like a second dad to me. Um, he's I cannot say enough about that guy and what he's done for my life. Been I would probably say one of two people to call me out and call me on my BS to my face, and tell me that I was being a problem, and told me that I needed to fix it, but then also offered to help me through that. Um, and I can't say enough about what Coach did for my life, and the way that he helped mold me into who I am today. Um, and so that was, Taylor would have been a great experience, if I hadn't have played football. I'm fully convinced of that. But being able to have that experience with Coach Mingo, and the guys that I got to play with, I mean, I feel like as lucky as I could be to be able to do that. And so through all those experiences, being there. immersed in it, seeing what this is what right relationship with God looks like. I jumped in with both feet, and obviously struggle with sin every single day. But I jumped in with 2 feet, and I've never looked back. And a lot of cool stuff has happened because I was able to do that, and so
Did you ever find yourself in a moment? Because I know, and I didn't really talk about this, but I know in my story, there's plenty of moments where I've had to, you know, face head on, like on my knees, Lord, you know, I'm sorry, turn me towards you. Did you ever, in maybe not in that exact posture, but did you ever find yourself in a moment where it was like, maybe it was those conversations with your coach of just calling your crap, of just like, something's got to change. And like, was there a pivotal moment that you can remember, or a collection of moments where you found yourself in that headspace of like,
yeah.
and if so, if you would be comfortable expounding on what that was like.
Yeah, so spring ball my sophomore year, we're leaving a morning workout, walking to the dining commons. And that's when my coach pulled me aside. And, I mentioned earlier that anger is something that I've always struggled with, but I tried to keep it, super mellow most of the time. So off the field, um, nicest guy I can be, obviously I can be, maybe not as nice sometimes, but did my best to be the nicest person I could be off the field, majoring in, studying to help, help the vulnerable and, do what I can to make an impact on the world. And so stuff I'm super passionate about. But that identity piece was real. And I was continuing every single day to place my identity in the fact of how well I performed. Whether if I performed bad, if I felt like someone did something to make me look like I was performing bad, I would lose my crap. I never like full on gotten any. I don't want to
Mm,
say that because it might not be true,
yeah.
but I don't remember like it wasn't ever like we're just going at it, but it was like a very real like I was always the guy like I get pissed and push a guy after the whistle, or I get pissed and start cussing at somebody, and it wasn't an every single day thing, but it was more often than not. Especially that spring ball my sophomore year because I thankfully I got an experience to play a little bit my freshman and sophomore year, and I felt like maybe I had to hold on to that so tight and white knuckle that. Um, and so we're walking at the dining commons after a morning workout, and Coach Mingo just pulls me aside. He's like, "You got to get your crap figured out." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Your anger, your like your frustration, the way you carry yourself when you don't do well. It's like he literally said you're putting your identity in how well you perform." He goes, "And it's not toxic to the team right now." He goes, "But if you leave it unchecked, it could be." And that just, I mean, punched me, ripped my heart out, punched me right in the face. Like that was the most like real humbling experience that I can remember having. Um, I'd ever had up until that point, and I don't know that I've had a more humbling experience since. Um, and that just hit me, and I just started praying. Like, as soon as I got my food, sat down at the table, was quiet, and I was just praying, like, Lord, you got to help me figure it out. And the guys I played with will tell you that, it wasn't perfect from then on, but there was definitely a change that happened. Um, and I wish it would have happened sooner, and I wish that I just wish I never would have had to struggle with that. But that's real, and that's something that I still struggle with is frustration and anger. But um, that was one of those big moments. And then I say maybe another one was my junior year. I dealt with some back issues, um, and that towards about the middle of the season, it got pretty serious, to the point where I was just basically scratching and clawing, doing whatever I can to get through the day just so I can practice, and then I, collapse after that, and um, just feeling hopeless. Like I just really thought that something was actually wrong, and um, that wasn't more of like a God, let me like bring me back to you, but it was like God, the only way I'm going to get through this is with you. Um, and so that was, I say it's more one of those moments where that I had to rely on him. But definitely the call out my sophomore year was a big moment where I was humbled.
So that was going to be kind of one of my questions. When you were talking about, placing, you struggled with trying to figure out who am I, right? Like I don't like what I see. I don't like sometimes what I hear. I don't like what I feel. Um, like was it that conversation with your coach that kind of brought you around to finding, letting go of all the other um, identity things you were chasing and really finding your identity in Christ? Because like you started off by saying, like I'm recognizing the depths of my own depravity. I mean, I don't know if you said that word for word, but close to that, right?
Similar.
So, um, like talk to us a little bit about like how did you arrive at finding your identity in Christ? Like if that moment your sophomore year spring ball with coach kind of pushed you over the edge or whatever, like what was that journey then?
I would say that kick started it. But something that we talk about a lot is it's not, and I guess this kind of plays into what we're talking about and a little bit what you talked about last week, Cole, but like it's not this road and I'm just on this road until I get to a destination and then I'm there. That's kind of that road to success mentality that says like I'm just on the road doing what I got to do to get to a certain place. Something that we talked about a lot in college was having a success road mentality, which means I'm going to find little wins on the way and I'm going to really just like dig into the process of what we're trying to do. And find success in the journey, not the destination. And that was something that I
It's the
really
climb.
that was the worst thing you've ever done. And so like I think that's what it was more for me. It was the daily talks from our coach. It was the Bible verses and the like kind of extra biblical, like maybe quotes or stories or stuff that he would talk about. It was classes, it was church, it was like I mentioned reading earlier, it was diving into any book I can. Honestly, a big book that's helped me a lot with identity is from a guy here close around here from Pendleton, like Brent Henderson, his book, The Roar Within. Um, like that was real. I mean, that's something that I got when I was a kid and didn't really get around to reading it until I was in college. Um, and so like just that little stuff along the way, just constantly pushing me in that direction. It got to the point where I'll be honest, because at the beginning, if this is like a train, I was out front pushing against it in high school and in the beginning of college, and then I kind of was just riding along, and then I really got behind that thing and pushed it as much as I could, and actually put in the legwork to realize that like I got to the point where it was like, it doesn't matter if how good I am. It doesn't matter if I'm starting every game or I don't play a snap. It doesn't matter if I get X grade in this class. Like it's about how I live my life. It's about who I'm serving. And it's about what he did for me on the cross 2,000 years ago. And that's something I mean I'm still battling with, but it's like constantly we talk about reminding a lot, constantly reminding myself of that truth. Um, 'Cause I'll be honest, like, one of my guys misses a sack on third and one or third and nine, and they scramble and get a first down. I No one is, but I feel those eyes looking at me like, can you like? And so it's like that's something that I have to constantly battle is like my worth, my identity, my my value isn't in how well I perform or what I'm doing. It's in whose I am and who God says I am. And it's a daily reminder that I have to literally cram into my freaking ear, but and into my heart.
It's going to be so like what you're talking about is obviously not something new, or cavalier to you, but rather like it's finding your identity in Christ is something that so many people have yet to figure out how to do, right? So, um, what would what would you tell them if they're struggling with their identity because they don't like what they see in the mirror? because they feel like they should be doing this and they're not, or they should be farther along and they're not, or they're struggling with this addiction or that addiction, or, you know, you'd even brought up, really some pretty serious issues that you still have with your back that could have gone way south, even in terms of just your physical mobility, right? Like people who are struggling with those things, what would you tell them?
I would tell you that first and foremost, I would say that I get it. I understand what you're going through. Maybe not, the ins and outs, but I can sympathize and understand where you're coming from. Um, because I've been there. Um, and then I would tell them that no matter all these people that you see that you think are better than you, or these, whether it be on social media, at church, on your team, or this idealized version of yourself that you're trying to strive for, like, while it's great to strive to be better, and I believe that's a requirement that we have to do, if you're constantly comparing yourself to everybody else, there's no way you'll ever be able to progress. And we have to get to a realization that God formed us in our mother's womb before the beginning of time, right? He knew exactly what I was going to do. He knew exactly where I was going to be, and he knew exactly who I was going to become. Same thing with you. Like, so have rest in that. Know that like he created me for a purpose. These these weird quirks about me, these things that maybe I don't like about myself right now, um, they matter and they have value because that's the way that God created me. Now, I'll say that, but I'll also say don't be a crappy person. Like don't suck. Like don't just
Tip of the day
live.
right there, boys and girls.
Yeah, like don't just be, well, that's just the way God created me. I'm gonna live. No, screw that. Shut up. Like no. If you're a sucky person, like don't be a sucky person. Like when you suck. Don't do that. It's not God, don't abuse God's grace. Don't
Oh,
just
there it is.
don't
There it
just
is.
say
Yeah.
don't just you can't do whatever you want and say, "Well, that's just the way God made me. He's going to forgive me. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to." No. No, shut up. It's about acknowledging how God created you, right? But also acknowledging the ways that sin has twisted that, right? So it's living into the things and it's identifying the things that God instilled in you that can be used for his glory and for the good of others, but also understanding the ways that Satan has manipulated you and twisted that and doing everything you can with the help of God to root that out. Um, because I'll say even when I was in the mud and hating everything about myself, I couldn't like, and I no, I hate a person's mindset that says I'm gonna do whatever I want because that's just the way that God made me and only God can judge me. Homie, God can judge you. He's gonna smite you out of the air. Like the mindset that only God can judge me should scare the crap out of you. Like it's that mindset I don't get. What they're not wrong. They're only God
Honestly,
can
it
judge
should
them.
scare the hell out of you, is what it should scare out of you. But
But it's just that is a fixed mindset that says I am what I am. I can't change. So I'm just gonna live however I want. Um, is crap, and I hate it. Um, but I think at the same time, God did create you a certain way. He created you unique. Um, and live into that. Like use that for His glory. Use that to help other people. And once you do that, like I would tell somebody, like you'll feel more free. You can live free, you can play free, you can perform free. Like you don't have these chains on you that says I have to add up to some certain like idealized version of myself that I'll never be able to reach, or I won't be able to be like that person who's doing this way better than I can. No, no, you're not that person. So stop looking over there, right? Look into what God created you to be. And I think once you kind of stop comparing yourself to others all the time, you'll realize that there is another level of peace and another level of, quite frankly, joy that you can have in your daily life when you stop doing that. So probably a really long-winded answer, but
No, I there's a question that we have on here. It says, "What's a piece of advice that you wish someone would have told you?" But I want to rephrase that. What would have had to happen in your life for you to have not gone down that path?
I was going
Period.
to ask
Question
something
mark.
very, very similar. Like what would it have taken for someone to tell you, your September of your sophomore year of high school, right? To lead you away from that.
And if
What would
not
it take?
telling, like yeah, like maybe what would have had to happen?
Yeah.
You know, how severe, yeah, or maybe you don't know the answer, but
And
just spitballing.
who would it have had to come from? Right? Like I don't know. Like I remember you asked something similar of to Cole last week, and he's like, nothing.
oh yeah. Um, I don't know. I think
I mean, it's kind of a what if thing, right? Like
yeah,
we don't
so
know, but
But I think the what's interesting about this question is I think a lot of the time there is no advice you can give to pull someone away unless you're at a very influential point in their life and God's already moving in that.
mhm.
But I think and it's not dwelling on the past. It's not saying how you could have fixed it. It's saying it's recognizing for all three of us, for yourself, for anyone who could be listening, the severity of like what would have had to happen. Like it could be super severe, but just understanding that like that's the mindset, it could maybe help reach someone in that situation better.
Yeah. I think I think part of it is I'll say two things. One, I think part of it is just that peace and that I don't want to phrase it. I'll say this. I think it would have taken somebody to call me out as bluntly as my college coach did. Um, the first time I'd ever did something stupid like that.
Mm,
Um, because like I said, I knew I was a fraud. I knew that I'd act one way at church or one way at school and then be a completely different person anywhere else. And so it would have, and my worst fear was someone finding that out. And so I think the only way that I think I would have not maybe gone down that path is if my worst fear would have been realized and somebody would have called me out to my face.
mm,
Another thing I would say is in that time in my life, and I don't know what this would have looked like because I kind of just shut myself off and was kind of just whatever to everything. But um, I wonder what it would have looked like in that time specifically to have like an older Christian male that wouldn't just like talk to me on a Sunday morning, but would maybe possibly do everything they can um, to pour into me, outside
yeah.
of church. And there were definitely great, great dudes that I had in my life. Um, but so that's what I said. So it's hard to say that because I definitely think I had a lot of people like that. Um, but I think those the best stories of people that have found peace early and that have figured some stuff out earlier on is when they had the same dude consistently pouring into them. Um, and so I think maybe that would have done that, but I mean that's just speculation at that point. I don't.
I think that brings up something interesting that obviously we grew up with a man who was a great role model uh uh to a lot of people, to us. And so it can sound off-putting to say something like that, but the truth is, and I think if anybody that wants to truly think about it and ponder it would come to a similar conclusion, I would think. You're not going to listen to your parents. You're just not. And now I can, right? And that's at least for me, right? Like now I can, but there was a time in my life where it didn't matter, and that's what I was kind of saying last week. If when you asked me the question, what advice could someone give me? It's because I've in my story, my mom and dad gave me, and you and Jay and anyone in my life gave me the advice, and I didn't listen to it. And I've had this conversation with them 100 times now of like, I can't believe no one told you this. And they're like, dude, we told you that the whole time, you just weren't listening. And it's like there's just something that happens that you having someone outside of who you're comfortable with, like correcting you, because when you get comfortable with someone correcting you, you don't always you're just kind of like, yeah, whatever, this is normal, like, yeah, I'm in trouble again. But when it's someone outside of that circle that comes to you and like whips you into shape, it's like, oh, this isn't just me in my home. This is who I am. Someone outside of my circle has identified something in me, and now I have to say I can run from it or I can face it. And so I think that's something that's just an interesting conversation of having these figures in our lives that um you know when truly we had a pastor dad who I think did a great job. And it's just weird. It's this weird relationship between kids who want to be defiant, and just don't listen. But
Well, so I would say my experience was vastly different from yours. In that the vast majority of everything that I quote unquote did, right? Like whatever you want to, the sin that I was dealing with, they had no idea, they didn't even know about.
sure.
In part because I we lived, my life was 40 minutes away, so I could just drive to school and be there all day and come home just enough time to sleep and get up and do it again the next day. Um, but also like I mean, and you mentioned with the long conversations that you've had with mom and dad, like part of that was like a lot of that stuff was going on when I was dealing with all this stuff, and so like they're like they were dealing with other things, and I was just like doing whatever I wanted because I could just kind of fly under the radar. Um, because my defiant nature isn't like in high school. Like I mean, maybe now it's I'll say something to your face, whatever. But like in high school, all that time when I was in that era of my life, it was all secret under the radar. I was lying about it. I was doing anything I could to get out of it. Nobody knew anything was happening. And so it's not like they just said stuff and I didn't listen. I listened to everything that they told me. And then when was corrected by them, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I did a pretty decent job of putting that into practice. But it was that stuff they didn't know, they didn't even know they had to correct was the real stuff that I was dealing with. Um, and so I think that was more of it. Like, truthfully,
Sure.
they were just dealing with like, not to
They're
call you
dealing
out, they were dealing with you. And
with
some other stuff. And so like it were truly like, oh, they're in an argument with Cole again. I can just
He said
lit
again.
literally just walk out the back door and maybe nobody knows I'm gone. That definitely happened on multiple occasions. Um, and that's just the reality of the situation. And it wasn't always just you. That was just a joke. But like that was just the reality of where I was. Everyone saw me as the great kid who did everything right. Um,
Same.
didn't cause any trouble. Like I just did, and so I just that's just my reputation. And so when I tell you like that feeling of being a fraud was real, and that was my worst fear was for someone to realize that. I mean, me getting called out to my face and just dirty laundry spilled everywhere would be the only way that I could have not gone down that path.
Interesting. It's really interesting.
I was a good kid in terms
Well,
of
I mean, even
outwardly.
even even if our experiences were a little different, I'm still glad that I brought it up because, that for kind of further diving into what you meant by that, I think clarifies. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
what are you thinking, Jason?
I'm just thankful to the Lord for bringing you two back around because in your own rights and in your own ways, you both could have gone down very, very different paths with your
For sure.
lives.
Easily.
And I mean, here's the thing: the credit goes number one to Jesus and number two to your mom. That's it. That's it. Period. Hard stop. And so I'm thankful.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's, the majority of my that summarizing that prodigal time. Um, but then I would be completely remiss if I didn't mention the absolute blessing that Olivia has been. Um, that girl's a rock star. Um,
That's true.
she, just everything that she does daily now, but the way that she handled my bull crap, um, and medical hospital runs and surgeries and all that stuff with just boundless grace. It's probably why it's her middle name. Um,
It's literally her middle name. Yeah,
yeah,
Grace is
and
my
then
middle
it's
name.
yeah. So
No, no,
she's
it really is.
there is I mentioned being a fraud. There was a long time where I had a really real fear that I wouldn't ever be able to commit to somebody. Like just a nagging fear in the back of my brain. Um, and truthfully, like when I met her, I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm set. I got it. Because I mean, every single day that girl is she is the other than salvation, the single greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And so being able to be her husband and fail every single day at trying to show her love and to serve her, but also it's an honor to be able
Mhm.
to do life with her, and she has done just so much for my personal faith journey. And we've really grown together, and so yeah, I just would be remiss if I mean that's a huge part of my story. All that crap that I was dealing with, coach calling me out, back stuff. She's not the loudest person in the world, but she was right there every single time, um, praying for me, praying with me, being with me. And so I mean, would not be where I am today without, well, literally, I probably wouldn't live here, but, um, would not be where I am without her. And I guarantee you she's in the other room just sawing logs, but she's gonna be so mad at me when when she hears that. But, no, so I would be, remiss if I didn't mention her. And
It's really
also, and her pink couch that I have covered with my blanket. She would also be in her room.
it's crazy to, I think this style of conversation just brings out different components and different aspects of things. And so I've been super grateful to sit down and hear it from both of you as I've generally understood the story, but for both, but there's just components of these stories that I feel like are the most important points of the stories that sometimes get left out for whatever reason. Perhaps it's like at least for me, I know sometimes I leave out things because I assume it's obvious, but it's not obvious. Some of those things aren't, and so it's always a blessing to hear.
Hmm.
Um,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, any other questions you guys have for me that I can
I think one that
address?
we've been hitting is If you have one message to the modern Christian man, what would it be?
Yeah, don't suck.
Don't
Like
suck.
like literally, like don't be a crappy dude.
And if
Um,
you are,
Repent.
yeah,
stop.
stop.
You
Yeah,
are, stop.
stop. I mean, no, that's in all seriousness. Like a lot of people say that, oh, there's the problem with men is they're so, prideful or they're so aggressive or it's just, it's toxic masculinity. That's what we hear about all the time, right? That's crap. Like the number one killer of marriages, of families, of churches, relationships, businesses, organizations, the number one killer outside of Satan himself is passivity. Is the Christian male being passive, passive in their faith, passive in their relationships, passive in their work. Um, and so I would say that, my number one message is like be active in everything you do. Be proactive in your relationship with Christ. Be proactive in your relationship with your wife, with your kids, with your family members, with your coworkers. Like, don't be a dude that just floats through life and does his 9 to 5 or whatever job he works. It could be any job, right? Does the job, comes home, doom scrolls on his phone. Kids are trying to play with him. He's too tired, sits there, cracks a cold one, sipping, watching the TV, goes to bed, does it all again the next day. Like, don't live life like that. Don't float through life thinking that one day everything's gonna be fine when my retirement account is, at a certain number or, when I get this car, this house. Like, that's passive. Like, do what you can today to grow your faith. Do what you can today to be a better guy, to be a better follower of Christ, a better husband, a better father. And I fall into it every single day. Um, but remembering that like God was proactive in his plan of redemption and salvation with us. He sent his son. His son lived a sinless life. He died a death he didn't deserve to die, just for us. And so it's like if God is proactive in every single thing that he does, and he's like we brought up last week, he's living, he's active, he's sharper than a double-edged sword. Like be the same way. Like don't be afraid to step on toes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Um, and live dangerously would be my long-winded, advice. That's advice to myself too. More aggressive and probably a lot more curse words in my head, but like to myself, it's the same message.
Well, we love
It's
you
pretty
and we
phenomenal.
Yeah,
appreciate you being
absolutely.
here.
I do have one more thing. I mentioned I like to read, and so I do have some book recommendations for those of you. So this is a new
Let's hear it.
thing.
Shoot.
Let's hear it.
So, and this is terrible because my camera is flipped, but Fortitude.
No, we can
Like,
see it just
I
right.
can read. I
oh, can you?
can.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Fortitude by Dan Crenshaw. He's a
Actually, it's yeah, put it in front of you because your camera's yeah, there you go. Now it's clear. Because your camera's blurring everything else out.
Oh, gotcha. So yeah, Fortitude by Dan Crenshaw, former Navy SEAL, current congressman out of Texas, I believe. Um, stepped on an IED, had something blow up in his face. God, through God's healing and the doctor's hands, he was able to regain sight in this eye. But he's got a lot to say about being mentally tough, which I think is really great. In this era of, cancel culture, of everybody succumbing to their feelings, being passive in that way. Um, this one's all torn up because I read through it all the time. But discipline equals freedom. Oh, I have the field manual, but I also have the other one somewhere. Oh, right here. Um, by Jocko Willink, also former Navy SEAL. Um, I mean, I feel like most people know who Jocko is, but he's motivational speaker, does a lot of leadership consulting for businesses now with him and Leif Babin. But he's got a lot to say about like you can unlock freedom being disciplined, right? He doesn't mention a lot about scripture in there. But I think, part of unlocking that freedom is being disciplined in your faith as well. And so I really try to, apply that um, to my life. For people that are trying to start like a daily study that maybe don't, Bold Pursuit. Ooh, Maybe, maybe, maybe.
Over, it's got to be in front of you.
There we go.
There you go.
Bold Pursuit by Daniel Marr. It's just a 90-day devotional for men. Just literally goes through day by day. There's scripture, little devotional, a dig deep thing, some journal topics. Men, if you don't journal, you need to journal. It's great. I don't do it near as enough as I should. Um, and then currently I'm working through Disciplines of a Godly Man, um, by R. Kent Hughes with a couple of my buddies, and so I would also recommend that. It's great. Um, so yeah, those are
What about the
my
Bible?
Bible's great. Always read the Bible, but that's in the other room. That's on the counter.
Oh, of
Um,
course it's in the other room.
well, yeah, because that's where I do my. It's next to my coffee maker.
Oh, sure.
Shameless plug for Black Rifle Coffee. And so yeah, so I would say,
Hebrews.
if you want to, huh?
Hebrews.
Hebrew. Oh, that was lame. I didn't like that. Sorry, I did
Hey, I
not get
thought it
that at
was
all.
great.
Yeah. And another thing I would say, if you're trying to be active in the way you live your life, read books. Just dive in as much as you can. Anything, fiction, nonfiction. It's great. That's
I
all I
haven't
got.
read a book. Uh, 5 years probably.
Wow.
I
Oh,
never
that's
w
not true. That's not true. That's not true. I read my premarital counseling book. So I'm
Which is a
basically
huge
ready
step
to
for
be a
you.
husband.
Uh,
Yeah.
that can be a future topic on this podcast.
Yes, it can.
That can be a series. Is Cole ready?
I graduated my 8 week premarital counseling, therefore I am totally ready and prepared to
I'm
be
ready.
the best
I'm
husband in the world.
21, so I have enough life. And I've read the book. So I'm good to go.
The older I get, the more I realize I am just not prepared for marriage. Learn stuff all the time. It's like, yeah, shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have done that.
Well, good thing I'm not you,
Why does
because
she
I'm ready.
stay? Wow.
I'm ready to go.
Have at it then. So
All right,
this
guys.
podcast
Well,
will be
yeah.
continuing on after
After, um,
June 14th, so we can
you know,
hear that first year, and we'll
yeah,
we'll keep going and pick up some experiences as a Colt.
next week it'll just be myself and Jason because Cole will have lost his life by then
No, this
from
won't come
from
out
his
for
She won't
four
hear it for
weeks.
a long time.
from
We're good.
his from his fiance. But
Also, that's
no,
assuming she'll listen for longer than the first episode.
also true. That's also true. Well, I appreciate you guys, listening. I know I can be pretty long-winded, so appreciate you guys for that, and looking forward to the next one.
It's a good story, and I'm grateful for the path of redemption that the Lord has used others to bring you through. Um, I like how you were talking about being active and not passive, and so I'm going to throw this out there, and you guys can close it out. Um, Proverbs 16:3, commit your work to the Lord.
Hmm.
Doesn't say, although we can commit our rest to the Lord, but even in rest, we should be actively choosing rest, right?
Yeah.
Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. And so, as we are all choosing activity and choosing to have a bias towards action, make sure that we keep the main thing, and
Hmm.
commit whatever we're doing to the Lord for His honor and His glory.
Yeah. I would say one more thing that I would mention. You mentioned commit to the Lord. Also, I'd like to bring up Colossians 3:23. I have it up here, so I quote it correctly. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart,
Mhm.
as working for the Lord, not for human masters.
Amen.
You want to talk about not doing things for other people's approval. That's it.
That's the one.
So, well, awesome guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And we will catch you in the next one. Take it easy.
Later on.